Every trader makes mistakes, but not every trader knows what to do with them. Some turn mistakes into fuel, and others turn them into a full-time blame game. And today we are talking about the difference and why it changes everything. You are listening to the Confidence in Trading podcast. I am your host, Agnieszka Wood, a trading mindset coach and a seasoned day trader with over a decade of experience. If you are new to my show, don't forget to subscribe so you can come back for the next episode. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of psychology and the human element of trading. We take a deep dive into different perspectives to inspire you and help you navigate the emotional ups and downs of trading with self-compassion and confidence. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, this podcast is your trusted companion providing support on your trading journey. Get ready to boost your confidence and unlock the secrets to mastering your mindset for success. Welcome to episode 69, the victim mindset that sabotages traders and how to shift it. Hi, Greg. Welcome back.
Hi, Agnieszka. Hi, everybody. This is going to be fantastic. This is going to be one of my favorite topics that I think we've talked about in a while. Not that they're all great. I think they're all absolutely amazing, but man, I love this one.
Yes, because it's a very hands-on topic, right? This is something that I think we as traders are coming across every single day that we have to deal with. And not just as traders, I think as people in general, we are all so sensitive to failure, to mistakes, and trying to do our best in life.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's not always easy. It's not always easy when you have been brought up in that spirit of try to be perfect, the perfectionism.
Yeah, it's the perfectionism. That's one of the things that we've chatted about in the past about how it can rear its ugly head in a lot of what you choose to do. But for the whole being the victim side of it, that's a totally different ball of wax that we can uncover for sure today.
Being a victim, it sounds kind of heavy if you think about it, but in fact, that's a sort of an approach to life. I have read this book, Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you know that book. It was like in 90s. I think James Redfield wrote it, and it's a fiction, but he was describing patterns that people live according to, and one of them was poor me, which is the victim role. And I remember very well Poor Me because it resonated incredibly with me. I saw this pattern coming back in my life, and I saw this pattern coming back in my family, even that whole idea of like things are happening to me, which, from the cultural or actually historical perspective of growing up in communism and being oppressed. And yes, you are a victim. So deep down, really at the almost cellular level, you could say,
Yeah.
there's something that resonates really deeply. So that whole thing about things are happening to me, do you recognize it at all in your life, or maybe in your work with traders, in your coaching work?
Yeah, I a million percent. I will say that the first time that I ever had to, I played a whole lot of victim side when I went through my divorce in my personal life. And that was absolutely, it shattered the illusion of the perfect life that I thought I was living. And when that happened,
Right.
I kept saying, why is this happening to me? Why am I getting divorced? I mean, what did I do to get this to happen to me? Like, this is, and I went through that whole thing of this shouldn't be happening to me. And now, sitting in the spot that I'm currently sitting in, that's one of the greatest things that ever happened for me because I hold no ill will at all. I think it was the right decision. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me because the way that I've reshaped and shifted from to me to for me has helped me build who I choose to be now. And it changed the entire perspective for how I chose to see trading. And if a trade started to go wrong for me, and I began trading shortly after I got divorced, And it was, oh, great. So just pile on. So this is going to be, great. Now I'm making bad in trades because the market's against me now. Why is this happening to me too? And
Right.
it snowballed for me. And I finally started to be able to move out of that and into, for me, yeah, I needed to fail at that trading at that time when I was doing it because I needed to learn the lessons that I needed to go, oh, okay, that was a bad strategy in that one. Now I should definitely not have taken it like that. I was looking at a smaller time frame when I really should have been looking at a day instead of a 10 minute. Okay, yeah, no, it was all happening for me to get better, not happening to me to become the victim and things get worse. And when you can start to separate those aspects, it becomes such a lighter way of viewing that whole experience of whatever is happening in your life. Is it to you or for you? And I would venture to say, but you could probably answer the question better in your life. At what point did you move out of the stage of communism and being oppressed into your world into finally viewing it to for you?
It's a great question. In my case, when I moved to the Netherlands, which was in 98, we have been out of communism already for a long time. But considering that that pattern has been repeated in my family, and to a big extent it still is. I can actually still see it now when I speak to them. But for me personally, the fact that I had to take care of myself in a different country, establish myself, and make sure that I can, you know, I can live there. That was for me the moment where I realized I cannot be in that pattern anymore because there was already so many things working against me, so to say. I didn't have friends. I didn't have a job when I moved there. And having that attitude, oh my God, everything is happening to me, it would bring me completely into a depression, I think. So being actually sort of forced to act in my best interest at that time, like what can I do to establish myself in that country, helped me to also switch thinking from, oh my God, and this doesn't work for me or that doesn't work for me, was taking the initiative to make things work for me. And I did not have the, you see, I think that this is one of the things that a lot of times is being used that keeps people in that pattern, is asking the question why. And you mentioned also, it's like, why am I divorced? This question why is such a blaming question. The moment that we ask ourselves, why am I doing that? And traders are doing that all the time. Why am I repeating this mistake? Why am I hurting myself? Why am I sabotaging myself? This whole why, that's the blame, right? That's that um part of you that is not approving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't ask myself that question because I knew why, because I took that decision. I took the decision to leave my country and go and live somewhere where I had nothing, right? So the answer was, what do you mean, why? You wanted this.
Yeah.
And I think this is the part of taking the responsibility for your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
How about trading? When we make mistakes, we can say, "Oh, why does it happen?" Or when things just don't go as we wish they did. I'm thinking instead, how is this happening? Like how did it happen? Like what did I do to create this result? So really switching your perspective to stand in the shoes of the one who is initiating the action and not just looking at the effect and wondering like, oh, what just happened to me? Right? It's like, no, like what did I do to cause that? I think that switch is really helpful to get from that things are happening to me to things are happening for me. So for me that was really the turning point. And when I moved from the Netherlands 15 years later to the US, that was not even on my mind. Like I never felt that way anymore. Like, oh, why is it so tough for me? Yes, and things were tough, but I
Sure.
would never blame myself or blame other people. for that because I knew that, yeah, I'm choosing this. So to go through hell, just keep going. Don't stop now. Right.
Yeah, that's 100% one of most of the things that people do. And when you were just talking about the whole side of making the choices to do it, it is extremely difficult to be a victim when you're making the choice to put yourself in the situation.
Absolutely.
So when you choose to say, happening to you and not happening for you, there's a certain distinction between, well, you made the choice to be in this position.
Right.
Like in terms of trading for this specific aspect, you made the choice. I didn't come to you and say, hey, listen, Tim, you're going to start trading, or hey, Michelle, you're going to start trading. You made the decision to get into this ring.
Right.
And and when you're in here, you have to take your punches and you have to take your ability to learn and grow and make mistakes and become better. And those aren't happening to you. Those are happening for you because you made the decision that you wanted a future that involved trading, which made you get into trading, which led you down to listening to this podcast, which led you to developing a strategy and becoming better. And those are all things that are for your betterment, not to make you worse or to knock you down a peg.
Yeah. And I think it's easier to, like, when things are going well, it's easier to take the credit, like I caused that. Like I made this decision and that's why it works. I mean, it happens all the time. Just look at the trades, right? If trade is working out, everyone is the first one to say, oh yeah, I knew it's going to happen. That's why I took this trade and, made a lot of money. But not many traders will admit, yeah, I thought this is going to work and it didn't, and this is what I lost, right? It's just easier to be proud of when you were right. And that's the problem, because I don't think it's a matter like in life. Life is not about being right,
Agreed.
because that right is bringing you back into this whole thing of, if I am wrong, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's just like immediately this interpretation. I failed because I was wrong. But life isn't about right or wrong. It's about making choices, and then the consequences of those choices are going to show in our life, and then we know it's like, that wasn't the right choice. So even if you look at the mistakes, as we call them, it's so much easier if you just give this back to yourself as, I just didn't make the right choice. And there are so many choices. It's not easy to always make a right choice. Just think about it. In trading, there's so many different ways you can trade. And you won't be making always the right choice. You won't be making right choice, like probably not even like 60 or 70% of the time. But if you understand, it is not about making the right choices. Like, don't make it about that. Look at the results of those choices and see how you can align better, how you can pivot, how you can improve your ability to make a better choice next time without trying to make the perfect choice, because that can be paralyzing too.
Yeah, and you'll have no idea what the perfect choice is. No choice that you ever make will you ever understand if it was right, wrong, perfect, abysmal, disaster, until the results show themselves. So to put that much weight and ideas and concepts into making the right choice and decision, you don't have any idea what that is until the results are presented to you. And they could be very different. You could make the same decision 2 days from now, and it could be right. You could make the decision after that, and it could be wrong. But it's about being able to understand what happened after, not make yourself the victim of the outcome, and then figure out how you're going to choose to move forward. And that's a lot of how we choose to go about life. And for anybody out there who's ever experienced therapy in any which way, shape, or form, but one of my favorite discussions in the world is the difference between Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and Joseph Adler. And all three of those are different aspects of psychology about how you deal with either things in your past, in your present, or your future. Freud loved to be able to say things were based off of, childhood experiences and traumas and things that you were exposed to when you were younger, and they make your decisions now. And that's Freud. And that's then you have Young who says, hey, well, the past is a little bit important, but really right now is the thing that matters most. Yes, those things did happen, but what decisions are you making right now that are bettering you? And then Adler is on the third side of that, and he's way more progressive. It says, listen, everything that happened in the past, you need to make a decision now for your future. So, what are you doing right now that's going to set you up better for the future? Not deal with what happened in the past. Recognize it, understand it, see where it came from, and then go, I won't make those mistakes forward because this is the life that I want. And honestly, if you, for everybody out there, you can go look them up and start doing some educational value on the three different experiences of what they bring, but they can teach you very different ideas and concepts of what a victim mentality can be. And each one of us experiences it so vastly differently. But that doesn't make one right and one wrong. It just makes it very different.
That's so interesting. And also, like if you look at that perspective, it's there are different dimensions to it, right? Because the past, the future, and the present are sort of cognitive concepts. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people who say time doesn't exist. Time is a concept we made up to orient ourselves in space. But if you look at where we are actually living now, we are living in those three places at the same time because time is flying so fast that we are constantly in a past, future, and a present. The present moment is the breath, but the moment that you are breathing out, that breath you breathed out is already the past. However, our brain is tapping into our experiences from a long time ago. For many people, I don't think it's really easy to kind of let go and just say, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, what has been in the past, it's in the past," because there is still, for many people, emotion connected to that past that they haven't released, and it it's not a cognitive work to release that.
agreed.
All the traumas and experiences, emotional experiences from the past are saved and memorized by our physical body. And now you can forget them or like try not to think about them. But those emotions, those suppressed emotions, they are coming out every day, right? And you might think, okay, they are not making any impact on my life. But then all of a sudden you explode because of some little thing that happened. It's like, where did that come from? Well, guess what? What are you suppressing, right? So there is daily we are dealing with something that had to do with our past. Now, a lot of people will see that as an excuse to not let it go. And they will say, oh, I've been like this for 40 years. I am just like that.
Mm.
It's like, well, the fact that you have been there like this for 40 years doesn't mean you have to continue like that. And that's the victim approach of this has happened to me and this is what it made me and that's it. I can't change that.
Yeah,
And from what I hear you're saying is you can change however you want. You can be whoever you want to be, but you have to be willing to let that shit go. You cannot keep fighting for your limitations and keep finding excuses why you are like that if you don't like the way you are, because that only keeps you in that same cycle.
oh, it keeps you in the same cycle. And for me, I personally, and for anyone who's been listening for a while, I hope you at least get a feel for the way I choose to operate. It is in the here and now. This is the decisions that I make right now are the best decisions that I can make with the information that I have. And then whatever comes after that, okay, that's an educational aspect for me that I need to learn from, and I'll make a better decision moving forward. And I'll again learn from the outcome of that. And that's just how I choose to operate from the most of my world. I don't really choose to operate much more in the past or too much into the future. Where would you say you choose to operate pretty consistently?
That's a fantastic question. I used to operate always in the future, like 6 months from now, usually. And that had to
Yeah.
do also that, I used to have a corporate job and I was doing marketing projects and campaigns. And like, I used to work for a car company, and we would launch a car more than a year before. So in my mind, I was already like a year ahead and working in that timeline. So, and this is like, I have been always doing that in my life as well, which made me not really enjoy the present moment. So I have changed it dramatically years ago. And most of the time I operate in the now, in the present. I do not fall back into the past much. I do operate to a certain extent still in the future because I love daydreaming
That's great.
and I love creating visions and the direction that I want to go, because this is what makes me excited to do what I'm
Mhm.
doing and just to see the result of it. I am big manifester. So if you are manifesting things, a lot of time you do operate in the
Yeah.
future to make sure that that image that you want to manifest is real, and then it becomes real in the present and becomes physical in the present. So it is a bridge for me between the future and the present. But I do love being in the present moment, and that's why I meditate. And that's why I do a lot of breathing meditations, a lot of breathing exercises. Those are my favorites. Like literally, if I could spend like 3 hours doing
Yeah.
breathing, different type of breathing, I probably would. And that's, I spend a lot of time during weekends. Like my mornings during the weekend are extended sort of self-care procedure, longer than usual yoga class,
Yeah.
and the breathing meditation, and then the regular meditation, and like really indulging in that feeling of being here. And I definitely need it because my mind wanders a lot.
Yeah, sure. Everyone does it to some extent.
Yeah, and I find myself a lot of times, like even this morning, we were doing yoga together with my husband, and he's usually positioned at the back of the room, so behind me. And at some point, I went into a downward dog, and I looked through my legs at him, and he's in a completely different position, and I'm like, okay, I missed the cue again. It's like, where is my head? What am I doing? And it happens on a regular basis. So I do need to do a lot of mindset work to keep myself in the present moment, and especially if I'm trading, that is something that's definitely a must for me.
Yeah, that's why you're as good as you are at what you do. You practice what you preach. Everything that you teach and help and educate people to become better at, you do every single day. You institute it, you recognize when you have a gap, you pull yourself back, and that's just constant, you know, training for yourself and exposure to the things that you can help people become better at, which speaks volumes to why you're so good at what you do.
I try to. I love walking my talk, and this is purely for my integrity feeling. I love feeling in integrity, and yeah. So yes, I do this for others, but I do that for me because I want to live in integrity, in love with myself. Having those feelings, the positive feelings about yourself, that is so important for living in that mindset. Things are happening for me, because part of it is blaming yourself for everything that happened or everything that happens.
Mhm.
And if you cannot forgive yourself for that, it's tough because you are taking that blame feeling with you. So if you are the victim, a lot of times you will see that people often blame themselves for things happening. And like, just take divorce, right? Kids often blame themselves for parents divorcing, even though they have nothing to do with that. And that type of negative feelings, a lot of times we drag with us throughout the whole life. And that stops us from loving ourselves because we feel that blame and sometimes even shame. And that stops us from acknowledging that we can make any mistake later on in life, trying to soothe that pain with trying to be perfect, with trying to be loved. And if you have that feeling of shame and guilt from the past, it's not easy to love yourself. So I'm trying to, live the life in a way that allows me to love myself, because in the past I have been dealing with that deficit in my mind you, not deficit that my parents didn't love me. It was a deficit in my mind that I thought they didn't love me. And, I was gathering the evidence for it. And obviously, if you gather evidence, you'll find it, because we can always prove two different opposite
Oh
angles,
yeah.
right? So yeah, that's the way that I just operate these days, and since years actually. And the quality of life has incredibly improved. So I highly recommend this to everyone.
Yeah, you have to be able to start if you want to truly build the life that you really want to be and the human that you want to be and the impact that you want to have on this world, you have to be able to understand that if you consume the victim mindset of all this stuff is happening to me, that is going to be that same voice that just keeps repetitive nature inside your head. And once you decide to create that hamster wheel and you keep running on that, that's going to be what you accept from people in your life. You're going to accept the victim mentality to the way that people are going to be allowed to treat you and the way that things are going to happen to you. That's automatically going to be your default go to. And if you switch that from to happening to you now for you, you're going to move into a completely different psychological state of how you choose to represent yourself. Because now you're no longer going to see yourself as the victim. You're going to see yourself as, oh, well, that's great. Now I'm better. I'm better because I know not to do that again. Or I'm better because that recognized that happened for me so that I don't ever have to go into that situation again. Or I now get to recognize the patterns that are happening. And that's exactly why we're talking about this specifically in trading is the victim mindset from a positive or a negative trade. You have to be able to recognize that trade's happening for you. And it may not be going in the direction you think it wants to go in because it's not making you money. That is still the answer that you need. But if you look at it from a perspective of not a victim, but an actual progression, man, your life is going to become so much more valuable to you and those around you because your impact will just be amplified by tenfold.
Absolutely. Yeah, the mistakes, they do not point to our incompetence, but to misalignment, whether it's misalignment of your own values with what you're doing, or misalignment of your strategy, or even the bias that you have about the market today. So remember, this does not say that you are incompetent, and taking it personally is the worst thing that you can do for yourself, because that means that if you're taking it personally, there are some emotions inside that you are trying to work out with trading. And the sign of those emotions, especially sign of guilt, is when you are negotiating with yourself about mistakes. So when you are trying to find the reasons for why did you make a mistake, that's like the very first sign that tells you you are carrying some sort of emotional debt from the past mistakes. And now you're trying to justify and explain and negotiate just to take that pain away. And that weight is influencing your decision. So when you catch yourself on negotiating, just stop for a second and just truly feel what is it that's coming up, and pay attention to that. Let yourself feel it without judgment, because if you don't let go of that emotion, you're just putting more in your backpack, taking it with you to the next trade. And sooner or later, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And that happens like in cycle, right? It's coming out a lot of times. So be more, I would say, the attitude, because it's really easy to say, right? Just take mistakes as lessons. It's like, oh, don't worry about it, just take mistakes as lessons. But how do you do it actually in practice, right? How do you flip that switch from not feeling guilty and ashamed and trying to justify the mistakes? And because we have grown up, most people at least, to be rewarded for perfection, that's where it comes from. But if you take the attitude, instead of perfection, you take the attitude of curiosity, Just become curious. Oh, how did it happen? What is it that I was thinking? What was I telling myself? Because in general, unless you're a psychopath, we act in our best interest. We think we act in our best interest. The problem is in trading that best interest is usually a protection. And that's why when I teach compassionate discipline, I reframe what is that best interest in trading for you as a trader, because not losing for most people is the best interest, right? In trading, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
If you tell me, Agnieszka, I just got this job offer and they told me I'll be losing money, I would say, Greg, wonderful. Have you lost your mind?
Yeah, and I'm sure I'd be like, you know what, that's probably a good point.
Yeah, that's, so that's the mindset shift that everyone needs to make
Good.
if you want to become successful in trading, from what is in your best interest in your life and how is your brain, your system interpreting mistakes and losses. Because if you don't switch that to what it is really and how you can take advantage of that in trading, it's going to be always that blame game, that guilt feeling coming up and trying to be the perfect person that doesn't exist, does it?
No, the perfect version of you is never going to exist. And when you break that down and you really think about that idea of perfectionism or the perfect everything, whatever it is, it doesn't exist and will never exist because times will change, technology will change, you will change, your relationships will change, everything around you will change, which means the idea and concept of perfection can't really ever truly exist because the moment you obtain one aspect of something, then now something is better has come along. Or now you've become now educated enough to go, wow, I thought this was great. Holy cow, what if I actually now go for this? And you've skipped over the idea and concept of it's progress. That's your perfection, is progress. Nothing more
Yeah.
than that. Because you're never going to, like, every trade that you make is not going to be the same. It's going to be a different time frame. It's going to be an entirely different sector of the market. Nothing is going to be exactly the same. Information changes, everything changes. So the only way that you'll ever even approach some sort of idea of concept of perfectionism, which can move you out of victim, is recognizing that your progress is the only thing that will ever be perfect.
You're speaking to a past pro perfectionist. And what you said actually hits home, because the way that I allowed myself to stop being perfectionist, the switch flipped when I started thinking progress, not perfection. And that's exactly what you said. Progress
Mm-hmm.
is perfection. And for me, it was, as long as I progress, it doesn't need to be perfect. And just going for the 80%, which, for me, it was difficult. Now, I sometimes even go as low as 60, depending on what it is. Not everything deserves the same type of attention and the same care. And like, you really can let yourself off the hook sometimes. And it is up to you to choose those moments, to choose those things where you say, you know what, this is good enough. Maybe instead of trying to make sure that this is perfect, I'm going to actually take 15 minutes and spend it on something that's good for me, to take care of myself, to give myself some attention and love, instead of trying to figure out another strategy that will make you a millionaire tomorrow. And I'm not saying that you guys are still chasing that million tomorrow, because I believe that if you are listening to this podcast, you have a sort of, healthy understanding that trading success does not happen overnight. But maybe there is a part of you that feels still, if you could just do a little more, if you could just work harder, just be better. Remember that being better can happen when you see yourself better, when you see yourself as a good person. And if you keep beating yourself up for your mistakes, where you feel like there is something wrong with you, the better is really hard to create, because everything you do is an expression of you, is a reflection of who you are inside. So if you don't feel good about yourself inside, you won't see the good outside.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to do it. And one of the shifts that I had to do in order to move away from seeing things as happening to me consistently and then trying to obtain the idea of, perfection and blaming other things that are happening is, again, after my divorce, which was the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though it was unexpected and at the drop of a hat, I had to switch to the fact that it was 1% better for me. And I started it literally, and I'm not exaggerating to anybody listening right now, literally 1% better every single day. And I meant that to the point of getting out of bed to put my feet on the floor was my 1% better. And then when I got up, I'd be able to move for 10 minutes. That was my 1%. And I knew that if every single day, if I took 1% better, even at 365 days out of the year, I'd be 365% better than when I started. So even if I took days off, say I took 100 days off out of the year and I didn't get 1% better, I still would be 265% better than where I was when I started, because I needed to shift, forget the perfectionism, forget blaming, forget victimism. Why and how can I get better? And if that meant 1% to me, that was the world to me. So you can release the ideas of concepts of victims and blaming and to you, those aspects, by just literally saying to yourself, how can I do one thing 1% better today in order for me to progress? And that is where you will shift your mindset from, I need to be successful right now, to
Thank you, Greg.
progress
This was
is perfection.
absolutely fantastic. And I really hope that this conversation hit home for many of you, if not all of you. Maybe take a moment today and just look at the last mistake you made in trading, maybe in life, maybe decision that you're not so proud of, and ask yourself, what was it that I can take with me? What was it that I can look at and say, okay, there is something good in there? It's always easier to look from the future back to the past and look at things and say, oh, now I understand why those things had to happen, because they happened to bring me here where I am. And we are always where we need to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, whatever happens in your life, get curious and think about, wow, if this is happening now, I'm so curious. What is the reason that this is happening now? Where is this going to bring me? Because this will give you so much more loving approach to yourself. Curiosity will give you more motivation to actually look at the situation, take the lessons, and implement some steps that will bring you closer to where you want to be. This one question alone, what was it here to teach me, can change your entire trading journey. So give yourself that gift and ask yourself that question today. And Greg, I want to thank you for being here together with me, having this wonderful conversation. And I wish you happy Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to you all, guys. I know we are a day after the actual Thanksgiving. Today is a Black Friday. So hopefully you are getting some good deals. We're all looking for the discounts, but the one most important person that we discount is ourselves often. So don't put a discount on yourself.
Agreed. I hope everybody had an absolutely happy holiday and you're going to finish the year strong. Just keep the right mindset.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone. And we talk to you in 2 weeks. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Confidence in Trading podcast. If you are enjoying my show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell me what you like about it. Thanks to you, more traders will be able to find me, and together we'll make a bigger impact. So thank you so much. If you are new to my show, don't forget to subscribe so you can come back for the next episode. And make sure to also check some of the previous shows. Thank you again for tuning in. This is Agnieszka Wood from Ahead Coach. Bye for now.